To the founder, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond, the foe destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, to God, the Lord of the world, supreme God of human beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and human beings, to you, the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the Shakya clan, and prostrate, make offerings and go for refuge. When the supreme among humans, you were born on this earth, you paced out 7 strides and said, I am supreme in this world. To you who are wise in, I prostrate. With pure bodies formed supremely pure, wisdom ocean like a golden mountain, fame that blazes in the 3 worlds, winner of the best, Lord, to you I prostrate. With the supreme signs, face like the spotless moon, color like gold, to you I prostrate. You are immaculate, 3 worlds are not. Incomparably wise one, to you I prostrate. The Savior having great compassion, the Founder having all understanding, the field of merit with qualities like a vast ocean, to you, the one gone to thusness, I prostrate. The purity which makes one free from attachment, the virtue which frees one from the lower realms, the one path, the sublime pure reality, to that dharma which pacifies, I prostrate. Those who are liberated and who also show the path to liberation, the holy field qualified with realizations, who are devoted to the moral precepts, to you, the sublime community intending virtue, I prostrate. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions, perform only perfect virtuous actions, subdue your mind thoroughly. This is the teaching of the Buddha. A star, a mirage, a flame of a lamp, an illusion, a drop of dew, or a bubble, a dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud, see condition things as such. Through these merits may sentient beings attain the rank of all seeing, subdue the flow of faults, and be delivered from sinful resolution, perturbed by waves of aging, sickness, and death. Baba Chinese, one shoe, Sheraji, Paru, Jimbo, Samo, Jabanila, number Tashi, Umbomabo, the Dalaya, Tashi, Tomba, number Tau, then Sangi, Gitu, Sedan, Demba, Shalibu, Janju, Semba, Semba, Baba Chinese, one shoe, Demeso, Ribu, Kanala, Sheraji, Paru, Jimbo, Samo, Jimbo, Jimbo, Deba, the Jita, Lapar, Cha, Dege, Meba, Janju, Semba, Semba, Dembo, Baba Chinese, one shoe, Sedan, Demba, Shadan, Demba, Dege, Meso, Sharibu, Rijibu, Kanala, Sheragi, Paru, Jimbo, Samo, Jimbo, Jimbo, Deba, Itar number Tower, Chate. Rajingi tombar nambar yanda bar jesu tao zubom bao tomba ni zuzo tole tomba ni shemayin tomba ni le jansu shemayin dejendu toro dan duje dan nambar shepan nam tomba o sharibu te darche tamche tomba ni le Senye meba majeba magaba tema meba tema da tewa tewa meba gangwa meba o Karibu tagawana tomba nila zume soa men dushi na namban sheba Mime nawa men name cheme lume yime zume rame jime rome rejame chume Miji kame bane iji kame iji nambar shebe kanje bato yame to mariba me mariba seba ne kashi sebe bato yame to dejinu donga bato Obada lame yishime toba me matoba yame sharibu tenaba chanju semba nam toba me bichir shiraji parudo chimba la tenji nete semba tiba me shi chaba Chinje lole shindu tene nyangele tebe tar chindu tusundu nambar shube sangye tamji shiraji parudo chimba la tene lana meba yanda par sobe chanju do ombar sobar sangye so Nagavana Shiraja Parutu Chimbe Ma Ripa Chimbe Ma Lana Mebe Ma Minyamba Danyambe Dongwe Tamshi Rabu Shivara Chebe Ma Mizu Vena Demba Sheba Chate Shiraji Parutu Chimbe Ma Meba Daya Ta Gade Gade Para Sangha Dembodi So Janju Samba Samba Jandu Deda Shiraji Parutu Chimba Samala Lapar Jao Dene Chumde Tenge Deda Shinde Janju Samba Samba Baba Jene Se Wanchu La Leso Shejawa Jene Leso Riji Bu Dede Shino Dede Shinde Dara Juje Temba Shindu Shiraji Parutu Chimba Samala Chebara Jate Dejin Sheba Namja Jesu Chum den dege dege je ka zene zedan demba shari dandi buna janju samba samba jembo baba jele zi wanchu dan sanji dan dembe kor de da me dan hama yinda jiza jebe jiten yiran de chum den dege sumba de Page 11. Thus I have heard, once the Blessed One was dwelling in Rajgriha on Vulture's Peak, together with a great assembly of monks and Boddhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One was totally absorbed in the concentration that examines all phenomena called profound illumination. And at the same time, the noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, was engaged in the profound practice of the wisdom gone beyond, analyzing the five aggregates by nature empty. Then, through the inspiration of the Buddha, the Venerable Shariputra spoke to the noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, saying, How should those of good family learn who wish to follow the profound practice of the wisdom gone beyond? Thus he spoke in a noble level, the Boddhisattva Mahasattva replied to the Venerable Shariputra, saying, O Shariputra, whatever son or daughter of good family wishes to follow the profound practice of the wisdom gone beyond should look at it like this, analyzing the five aggregates by nature empty. Form is empty, emptiness is form, emptiness is no other than form, form is no other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, recognition, karmic formations, and consciousness are all empty. Therefore, Shariputra, all phenomena are empty without characteristics. They are unborn and unceasing. They are neither impure nor free from impurity. They neither decrease nor increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no recognition, no karmic formations, no consciousness. There is no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind. There are no spheres of the eyes up to no spheres of the mind. There are none of these all the way up to there is no sphere of mental consciousness. There is no ignorance, nor is there destruction of ignorance. There are none of these all the way up to there is no old age and death, nor is there destruction of old age and death. Thus there is no suffering, no cause of suffering, no cessation of suffering, and no path. There is no wisdom, no attainment, and no non-attainment. Therefore, because there is no attainment, all Bodhisattvas hold of the wisdom gone beyond. And because there is no obscurity of mind, they have no sphere. Passing utterly beyond falsity, they reach beyond the bounds of sorrow. All the Buddhas who dwell in the three times, by relying on the wisdom gone beyond, fully and clearly awaken to unsurpassed, most perfect and complete enlightenment. Therefore, the mantra of the wisdom gone beyond, the mantra of great insight, the unequaled and unsurpassed mantra, the mantra that calms all suffering should be known as the truth, where there is no deception. The mantra of the wisdom gone beyond is proclaimed. Oh, Shariputra, this is how a Bodhisattva Mahasattva should learn the profound wisdom gone beyond. Then the Blessed One arose from that concentration and praised the noble Avalokiteshvara, the Boddhisattva Mahasattva, saying, very good, O son of good family. It is exactly like that. The profound wisdom gone beyond should be practiced exactly as you have said. And then the Tathagata arose. When the Blessed One had said this, the Venerable Shariputra, the noble Avalokiteshvara, had one gathering in the world with its gods, men, anti-gods, and spirits, their hearts full of joy, praise the words of the Blessed One, so in the noble discourses on the essence of the wisdom gone beyond.
아니 자세히 뭐 쉬어라 호랑이다 미세나라 저선 고순지 거는 냠에 지적에 냠용도 되게 아니 다 마송샤적이 샤베 자침보 아니 준주 자세 장면에서 저발로 저거 준주 생각이 내가 저거다 진이 제가 두줄 때 세상에 아니 자세 장주 생각이 저발로 럽세다 랑이 장주 생각이 저베게 저발로야 터선 고숨지 권에 터발로 300개 권에 더 몰라 아니 디네게 랑이 생각이 잘못 공부치는 데들이 냠내 지금 다 취시기 어려서
Okay, it is Thursday evening and we resume the great Shantideva's text, The Way of the Bodhisattva. The Way of the Bodhisattva, composed by the great Shantideva, is based upon his very own experience in contemplation and meditation, and then it is his own very teaching. And so now comes the moment when we instruct and listen to the way of the Bodhisattva. When training is spoken of, it is the training in contemplation and study, which precedes the later step of gaining a familiarity with the experiential element in one's mind.
제가 자세 좀 쉬어라서 그런지는 기회 보지 아니 기실려다 아니 제 내려달라쇼 아니 다시 되도 좀 아니 대충 그냥 내나 이제 이내야 그런 공부를 쇼디도 아니 지금 고백이 메다 칠로 메가가로게 그런라 되게 냠내 여봐다 시제 되게 여봐 신수게 신기 여봐 스펙한다 상황체는 냠내는 게 그래서
Shantideva was born a prince who would have inherited a kingdom, but he gave up his kingdom and entered the great university of Nalanda. And while there, his own prowess, his own understanding went unrecognized. None knew the extent of his practice.
야, 그런 게 코리나라 이 미주 그런 통나다 통주 관리지어래. 그런 게 되게 쥐어받 난다는 관리지어래스나. 그런 명들 두시 숨바와 제가 두시 숨바와서도 홀라는 저주 그런서 여러를 먼저 미저로 가던 게 어디나 당기요. 당도 좀 홀 두시 숨바와서다 뭐. 두시 숨바와서 좀 많이 가리어서나 아니 뭐 칼라사 아니 상주도 아니 네 이수모도 홀래가 요 말에 위주 여러를 yap시들이 저기 요레스 이나야 홀 로종데 여바다 냠내 여바 수강들이 신이 요 말. 그래서 미강을 그러나다 고배나는 고배들이 지금 대대 장하셔셨어. 다만 그 고만은 비에 탑시 된다. 되게 탑시 전에 그런 두 지난 대지가 지금 소화돼서
Observers did not recognize the extent of his learning, and in fact called him the threefold functionary. Those three functions were, and this is what they said behind his back, that of eating, defecating, and sleeping. So none recognized his ability, none knew that, and they named him this way. Believing him to be lazy and to have little learning, they made an effort to expel him from Nalanda.
이제 제가 딱 그런 게 저버도 미기 통주라 저버 하장이 저버 냠버도 미기 통주라 저버도 쳔다 그런 게 저버 원인의 수강을 땡기요 말 저버가 미기 통주라 저버도 그런 게 뒤지 숨바와 난 보수가 배다 미강하려고 배 고배나한테 저번에 쇼도 쓰기 어려서
What others saw then was a person of bad behavior. None saw the extent of Shantideva's learning. He didn't display it to anybody and was instead nicknamed this threefold functionary and seen to be the lowliest of students at Nalanda.
그런 게 저버도 아니 저버도 믹상화체는 송거 저버 상화체가 저버 냠는데 가래서는 그런 또 다른 냠는 지원난 게 요래 안디가 자주스미 냠는 게 요래 안디게 강가 냠는 강가 미수고 통나가 녀디 요래 그런 게 아니 녀 니람게 냠는 체는 아니 왜 또거냐 같은데 두기 요래서
His charya, his action was a secret. What was it then? It was the practice of the secret mantrayana. And on top of this, there was Boddhisattva. What others saw then was a sleeping person, but what was happening was dream yoga, and the person was developing great realization in their sleep.
고백이 미수다 꼭 한달 뭐보다 말때답 체가 된다라 딱걸로 최송하고 투주스 아니 그 최시에 맞춰서 그런 누구를 했었는데 되게 꿀렁한 거 체. 그런 최시하고 투주스 최시가 무시 최시를 처리치를 뭐들래 아니 그 슈브리도 하장게 토고자 야 자마도야 되대죠 아니 되대서 그런 배다 간다를 만별로 체하게 답시 망고 체버렸어 이내 그런 딩기 똑바냐바 이디 근데 그런 되게 강갈 간다를 주주 토게 슈브리도 가라 슈투야 여바다 최대도 아니 주주치 못해 송아 어디를 누구들에서
The monastery made an effort to find a way to expel him and thought that requesting a teaching of him would be a sure means for forcing him to concede and to leave on his own. And so they prepared for Shantideva to teach, and to humiliate him, to embarrass him, they made an excessively high throne for him to climb, which was unclimbable, and didn't know that deep in his mind, he had achieved such realization that it was no difficulty for him to magically fly, to mount the throne, and to teach the Dharma.
어디는 그런 게다 타마는 그런 게다 최송가 아니 최송가라 몰랐다 아니 마다 최 시야에 아니 뭐 마중은 최지 시야고래 아니 뭐 중국 사적으로 취지 시험을 아니 그런 디바 저왔나 저왔나도 좀 건설 내들 말 말씀 취지 송로는 어도 쉬거든 그런 거 준주도 나 해서
And in the end, Shantideva arrived, and arriving asked the audience, would you prefer to hear the Dharma unheard or to learn a Dharma you've already heard? And they said, let us hear something never before heard. And then he conveyed the way of the Bodhisattva.
야, 다 되는데 인도 zamani 그런 게다 간다 준주비 먼저 대신 뭐 지원 나시들 말해 그런 게 냠냠내 제시해줘 되겠지 쌤은 제만하지 가도 막 그시에는 숨셔줘 아니 대주시 차대요 그래서
Now, this text, the way of the Bodhisattva, is not an ordinary text one sat down and composed. It is what came spontaneously to the mind of Shantideva, and then he uttered it.
되는데 다 간다 수수기 냠용 먼저 내가 수수기 냠 루규시에다 냠용시에다 해서 어디 나시지나니 그런 게 냠내 지하기 냠용 되게 사상 전이 송어레스 아니 송구 아니 루 송어레 루 주박에 담았지 아니 이 달래더니 그런 주제가는 난갈 그렇지 말이야.
So it's that a ways, and it was the story of Shantideva, his own story, of his own experience. And as he spoke, as he uttered, as he continued, 10 chapters unfurled, and towards the middle of that 10th chapter, he began to levitate into the sky.
야, 아니 그런 난갈 그게 추 숨기 난갈 그다니 아니 그런 적 있다. 지역할 근데 루 주바디 아니 딱 한다 거는 간생과 너무 매봤어 지지어다 되니 마 지나니 망체 나가니 마 송샤죠 드라마도 소통야 매봐지 근데 소는 그런 배 라버서
Oh, it's succeeded.
강생과 너무 매 강생과 너무 유튜브가 끼대요
Boredom, barba.
강생과 너무 매봐
La, I'm gonna move it.
너무 매봐
Shantideva continued to speak and to rise into the sky, and continued to speak and to rise further into the sky, and spoke through this 10th chapter. And when arriving at the verse, or first speaking the verse, at the time before and the subsequent moment, at that moment, that very moment, this verse found in the 10th chapter, Shantideva vanished, and only the sound of his voice remained.
이상 시도 보설
The Ganse,
강생과 너무 매봐
that the kill and the Chubi kill it.
유튜브가 끼대로 다이는 뭐가 지는데 그냥 두드려
What Ganse?
뭐가 진짜 제일 나죠 다른 건데 아무저도 오늘 나도 뭐가 지 두드려도 내 뭐가 지나 야
Listen.
대체 다들 어떻게 저랬다 저지게 난 남다 거는 가진 거는 개버도 시작하네 그런 거는 tendency 슈버이 소마스
Now, I've already covered this, but I thought that I would remind all of you of these details of the origins of the way of the Bodhisattva.
야, 때 다이네 그런 게 냠용전에 셰샤가 최대 가르선 또 창주 생각이 줘봤어. 나 창주 생각이 줘봤어. 근데 어쩌다 지대에 감나라. 줘봤어. 뭐 줘봐 이봐 줘배가 남샤 망고 예배 나는다. 줘배가 남샤 초도 상황 약주디. 어디로 다 창주 생각 줘봐 진스게 어려서.
In effect, the way of the Bodhisattva is the charya of the Bodhisattvas, that being bodhicitta, as there are all sorts of forms of behavior in this world that we know of, the good, the bad, and everything in between. We find in bodhicitta the sublime and best conduct of all.
나 창주 생각 줘봐 이 아니 누구 땅도 진짜 준주 나마 시험도 아니 다 삼바 푸순 소바 장주초도 샘께바 센테제 직체 삼바 푸순 소바 장주초도 샘께바 아니 저 푸순 소바 저 푸순 소바 바이고는 두고 땜바스다 된제 대생이라는 말 친송고 열에서
The way of the Bodhisattva is organized into
삼바 부수 소바 셈게 봐. 저거 부수 소바 바이도 건데 그거 그때 봐. 상황이야.
Replete goodness of intention, the mind of enlightenment itself. Replete excellence of execution, the purpose of conscientiousness.
예, 다스 넘버 부수 소바. 아니 장주셔도 셈게 봐. 생애디 아니 가들 로 당보가 돌아. 장주 셈게 표현 개보지 시에요레스. 아디네 루니바 가돌아. 장주 셈 줄레게 소사야 남샤티 시에요레스. 아니 루 숨바 가도 장주 셈 숭해야 돼. 다루 당보 숨기 삼바 장주셔도 셈게 봐. 생애디. 나 땡기요레스 뭐지.
So then in the replete excellence of intention, giving rise to the mind of enlightenment itself, this is described first in the first chapter of the way of the Boddhisattva through the enumeration of the benefits of the mind of enlightenment, followed by the second chapter that provides a gathering together of the supportive conditions for the development of the mind of enlightenment, and then the third chapter that of maintaining the mind of enlightenment.
예, 다디네 루시바기 또 루시바거나 바이올리우스 밍 바이올리우스 나 바이올리우 다 가르쳐 버렸으나 다 삼바 장주초도 쌤께 사네 아니 다 내가 너무도 저어렸어 저와 저어렸으나 이 저요 말했어 다 가르쳐나 교와 부분 써봐 바이올리우 거네 아니 전 라고 왜 땡겨서
And this is followed by the fourth chapter, the replete excellence of conscientiousness. The chapter describes conscientiousness. For when the mind of enlightenment has arisen, then we ask, is our work done then? And work is not done then. Rather, that most replete excellence of the execution of the mind of enlightenment through the maintenance of conscientiousness follows and is the topic of the fourth chapter.
야, 다 간다 담보 장주초도 쌤께 봐대 삼바 부수 소바거나 쌤께 봐대 사는 쌤께 사네 아니 다 가르쳐 버렸으나 다 라바라 남기 라바스면 라보라 남기를 벌레 라보고요 야, 다 라바를 쳐봐라 다 람냠스 람주 쉐고라 람냠스 람주 쉐고라 제가 람주 되다다 아니 라바스면 람냠스 람주 쉐고디 다 간다 람 가르치 냠스 람게 왜나야 다쌤 송화대 바유유권은 쌤 송화대 매나 아니 딸 라비아 랍투기 매바다 아니 바유 송화권에 아니 라바이나 아니 송투기 여바 나 어디 있다 그냥 되돌아 아니 류 시바 바유 땡기어래 손으로지
After the fullness of the arising of the mind of enlightenment, then the undertaking of the very training in its stages, the trainings of the three higher sort, the three higher trainings. This is what follows, and whatever practice does follow from the arising of the mind of enlightenment, its efficacy is ensured by nothing other than conscientiousness, which is the mind's own control. One is unable to engage in any training whatsoever without that mental control. Where there is conscientiousness and the control of the mind, then one is able to engage in the trainings. And so the fourth chapter shows just this.
그릴로 보고 유나야 아니 바유티 쌤 송아 바유 송아디 아니 자와지 보고 여봐 이 나네 티버 친별 남라서 장주 쌤베 라발라 예 버도 쌤 송아디 매나 아니 룽아지도 뭐 송투기 매봐다 쌤 송아디 얘나 당가 송투기 여봐 쌤 송아 코나라 때는 라레바 임바데 아니 다 송고 여래 송아지
Chapter 4, in its presentation of conscientiousness, has its summary verse and its extensive dealing with the mind of enlightenment and conscientiousness. whether one is engaged in the Bodhisattva trainings, or the Pratimoksha trainings, or the secret mantrayana, whatever the case may be, all depends upon one's conscientiousness, one's mental control, and so it is the very root for success in any of these. And in the Mahayana, bodhicitta is ensured by conscientiousness, that mental control, which ensures correct conduct of body, speech, and mind. Lacking conscientiousness, there will be no control of body, speech, of body and speech. All rests upon then conscientiousness.
Oh, yeah, that's big. Lamshiki gonna chebayina, and a lava sums, lava, and what's from the lava, and then you but a lava, thinking lava, and then some other lava, share of lava, oh, this one doing the lava, this one madubagi, and the lava shimaka lava or mareson.
All the trainings are found in their basis in the three higher trainings of first, ethical discipline, second, mental concentration, third, wisdom. All other trainings, or rather, apart from all trainings found within these three, there are none that are not included.
Oh, yeah, that lamji for she chane, that was a party two cigarette, party juice cigarette. That's sometimes two tangajer, sometimes two tangajer, and the curriculum to yours. The party two tangajanet, duty kuno to do the yours. Chesan, lamji package, Lovier, the same duty, base chane, and the party troops, or the Yamlena do it your response. Yamlen Chasan.
The basis that is the path is counted sometimes 6 ways as the 6 paramitas, sometimes 10 ways as the 10 paramitas. Whether counted 10 or counted 6 makes no difference, for when the count is 6, all 10 are included. This is the path of the pacification of the mind through training, and there are all trainings contained in these 10 or these 6.
Oh, yeah, that Juju on a shield, no Juju in the shield. That and that little Juju in the shield, though Parjin Trugin Yame. Igaran Keto Dad, Yamedi, Parjin Trugin Yamena, doing the Tengi or Reso.
In particular, in the way of the Bodhisattva, these 6 paramitas exactly, precisely, are presented here, and all trainings are contained therein.
Oh, yeah, the Kade Tengeresana, that Chiben Yamedi, and Bash Mungshito Chen, that Shito Chen, Chidang Chen, Luka Madana Chibek Yamedi, so she's a shame, and it's Sudum Yamedi, that and that Lu Shibata Mawakadula, and so Sudum. 아니 시신기 민기다 시신기 민기토네 다 추름의 시신선 민기다네 아니 다 추름의 남자한테 송구 열었어 아니 사마 거진 사마 되게 아니 루마다 마와 두바도 바이지바 바하체네 시신 사마 되게 땡기 열었어.
The paramita of generosity as a foundation, as a basis of trainings, is presented in the early chapters and is a very basis upon which all the other trainings are presented. And then in the 4th and the 5th chapters, ethical discipline is presented, but it is given the name vigilant introspection. So the presentation of ethics, what would be understood as a presentation of ethics, is contained in the presentation of vigilant introspection. And then the other paramitas are described in the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th chapters.
Oh, yes, and that Parjin Trubudi, Yamne, Rangi Kula Jeva, Yamso Langur Chebala, and Payu di Yabordo, Sawado, the Koya Yawut, Parjin Trubi, Yamne, Rangi Kula Jeva Cheba, Rangi Kula Peor Cheba, and contact is Karichi Yuba Inayam, Payu, or Met Medumeruma, Sawado Zizan, and Lushibala. Payu said then. One layer danger, by the catching with a ship, Chidula, and Lucia Payu Demareson.
In the training, in the 6 paramitas, in those practices for the development of those perfections, to further the mind of enlightenment and those perfections where they arise, all depends upon conscientiousness as the very root for those successes. The 6 paramitas, so that they increase, depend upon conscientiousness, whatever one is engaged in, conscientiousness is the indispensable route to their success. And so in the fourth chapter, conscientiousness is the explicit topic.
여자 배우고 싶도 있다. 근데 고름당 아니디 바유기 배우디 아니 뭐는 셰고야. 셰냐 아니 셰를 거봐. 어디게 이제 야마 실료가 대화 되게 수수냐 너좀 제기는 양 고름도 셰야지도 어디 셰봐 인소.
Ale, jaba chitana ra. Jaba ta.
말하면 저 루야 뭐 단단한데 루 투고 고름지어로. 고름당 야마 대화 용단지어로. 바유 루시벌 셰고야 루 한마디게다 뒤에 강한테 셰고야 야마 중간치기 대화여로. 어디 셰야 지도라. 다른 게 대시 비슷하게
There is a sequence then, a mounting order in the presentation of topics through the text that we find in the fourth chapter. Conscientiousness presented before, then subsequent paramitas are presented, that there is a relationship between the paramitas and the order of presentation. To give you a rough idea of it, I've touched upon it briefly just now.
야, 딱 퍼진 푹 전 셰고야 돼. 퍼진 푹 전에 셰고야 돼. 가르나 다 배나 근데 퍼진 푹도 전에 셰고야 돼. 배나 맞었다. 그렇지. 탈도 하르바로 탐지게 놓고 와. 하르바 탐지게 놓고 와. 이 토벌 세발라야. 나 먼저 하면 고마 맞더라. 그 주비하게 땡이 비는 말. 이 땡이 예바 세발라 하면 고마 더 보고요. 야, 제가 되게 이유다. 하면 고마 더 배하게 된다라. 퍼진 당고 숨. 와. 야. 디네 하면 고마 톱산에 때 디네 탐지게 놓고 원 두번 세발라. 퍼진 치마 숨. 들이 지금 그룹 시험을 해야 되는데
The rationale behind six paramitas, the purpose of six paramitas outlined as they are as six in an order, is in recognition first of the ultimate objective, that is liberation and omniscient Buddhahood. That it is the ultimate objective requires its middle step of achieving first the fortunate rebirth as a human being or a heavenly being. Without that basis, as human being or heavenly being, there is no further step to take to the state of omniscient Buddhahood. It is required. So in order to ensure the achievement of fortunate rebirth as a human being or a heavenly being, the first three paramitas are taught. And then to finalize the final success, achievement of omniscient Buddhahood, the final three perfections are taught.
야, 다 디나네 다 담보 네, 모든 화미고가 토비하게 되도록 규순디 그래서 지바츠름 서바숨들 알아. 담보숨 버진 담보숨을 그래. 지바츠름 서바숨들 어디 가르치는지나 다 담보가 나도 하게 땡디 수술을 냠내 제야지도록 롱주 용하여 되도록 집에 냠내 고고 알아. 롱주 용하여 되도록 집에 냠내 아니 땡디 다 냠내 제야게 땡디 미들 하게도 미기 고만 토고요. 이 도배가 제대로 저 주디 좀 야, 다디네 데려와다 심지 콜지 된다다 라기 심지기 된지 버르는 수수 콜을 거기 경야스 콜을 마다야 콜 숭야 된다라 세배냐네. 디순도 고요. 그래서
코르치
코르디 뒤제 경야.
그래.
뒤절로 섬절로 마도야. 섬절로 송아 제고로 교바지고 야 교바지야 된다라도 세배냐면 되는 거래서
The first paramitas involved in the achievement as cause for the achievement of human rebirth and rebirth in the heavenly realms, that fortune. These three are generosity, ethical discipline, and tolerance. Why are these three in particular in service of the achievement of human rebirth and heavenly rebirth? As a basis for practice, so that one comes to inherit resources that will be at their disposal, one must practice generosity. And then as basis for practice, so that one may in fact achieve the fortune of rebirth as a human being or a heavenly being, one must practice ethical discipline, as ethical discipline is the principal cause for this. And so that when one experiences their good fortune, one is surrounded by a retinue that one may protect and serve, one practices tolerance so that one has about them those who may benefit from them.
yeah, that it goes on, farming what to basic things to the Parsi Tambo Sumje. That in a Parsi Chima Sumudi, that Karjo the Rangi Yamnechebe, Tusan Kosuku, you dedicate Kone Kondo Pella. A lam comment to what Java Chevala, to lose Parsi. She got to be Parsi Korva. That in a same 60 net over, she net over Chevala, and some days Parsi board. That in a Tegona Yaki Tongus to Tower Chevala, I don't you like Java Chevala, and Sheraji Parsi, or just a Parsi to men and Metabero, Parsi to Sama, Yaman Tamil Sama, or the dictionary Parsi took not to do the song your response.
In this way, then these first three paramitas serve the achievement of fortunate rebirth as human being and heavenly being. And the later three, beginning with zeal or energetic discipline, ensure the final result by furthering and intensifying the realizations stemming from study, contemplation, and meditation. Increasing and furthering these realizations is energetic discipline, zeal, the fourth paramita. And then to ensure that there be mastery of samadhi, then mental concentration must be practiced, thus the fifth paramita. And then for the realization of reality as it is, the union of shamatha and vipassana must be achieved, thus the training in the paramita of wisdom. And so in this way, all six paramitas, or rather the six paramitas, contain every training.
Parsi Chut, that means that I jam or Chela and to my Koran to go to Shelebri Pati, the Parsi Chut, she is a more Parsi Tamashidi, Nolan the top, the share of the Parsi, the Parsi, she Tamashi or Hamashidi, she's singing on doing the share that they all tentative Cheshi, Lu Jamana, and Gores almost.
Shershin
Oh, sherzing on to the Parsi Chut. Parsi Chut, the Parsi Trugan and Shigorwa. I got Pabda, Malonda, Topda, and she Parsi Kariwa. Oh, it is looking at the sheriff person to the share what the woman is saying.
Now I won't count out and go into the details of the four additional paramitas that come to 10 paramitas, but later on they will come up directly on their own. But within the pragya paramita, the paramita of wisdom, the four additional are contained. They are the method. They are rather method, aspiration, power, and primordial wisdom. These four additional paramitas are found contained in the sixth paramita of wisdom.
Oh, yeah, that is it. That is just a bit trouble. Love me. Love it. Just a bit trouble. Love me. That I'll go back to Guresna. And around you could you do and you go to Shinjuku, round the tattoo, the Shindu tattoo silver. Says that round you could Shindu you could to wear the Juzo or the Tamosum. This one? Oh, yes, round you go. The Rani Sanju Komatopova, to wear you to wear that, but it's Chimasum. Yeah, but in true, Tangi did share your response.
The charya of the Bodhisattvas is the training to ensure the achievement of the ultimate objective, that is, the achievement of the two Buddha bodies. The two Buddha bodies are the body in service of others and the body that is the complete achievement of one's own welfare. These two bodies are, first, the body in service of the well-being of others, achieved by the first three paramitas. The first three paramitas ensure the achievement of the Buddha body serving others. The final three paramita are cause for the achievement of the Buddha body, that is the consummation of one's own well-being. In the way of the Bodhisattva, there are countless trainings, many sorts of trainings, but when they are all distilled, they may be distilled into these six paramita.
that's a do you not can't do this? There Chimbatan Surum Yoro, Jibata Suruni, Masha Venimbo, Deja Nimbo Congress. Oh, Yanis, Sobadi, and this Chambako de Roda, there are Sobadi, Semjin Sumo Tanda. And the Semjin like other Combati, and Semjin Lu Metam, Semjin Sumo Tanda, or the Paget Tamosum the Congress.
How is it that the 6 paramitas are distilled in this way? The first 2 paramita, the generosity paramita and the ethical discipline paramita, cause detachment or non-desirousness. Patience serves for protecting sentient beings. Where there is patience, no sentient being is abandoned.
Oh, yes, that's really, and I think that comes to the that's really other lam combated. Rangi lamia, Oma Combaya, Payata, and a lam coma around Tober Chag, and Yamaka, children on Tusha response.
As I have said, ethical discipline, rather, as I have said, energetic discipline, zeal, is for the furtherance of one's own realizations in one's path, for the full achievement of all realizations, this zeal and energetic discipline.
Oh, yeah, that's something. And it's me, but don't make a lam tada, something lam do response.
The controlling of all distraction is found in the practice of mental concentration.
And share with that, the seminar Tiba Paja, the Yakan Jobber Chevadi, and share with Paji response.
Obscuration, stains, and defilements to the mind are abandoned through the paramita of wisdom.
Yes, that is a Lamka, so Yamnechi do, Arjin Togunal doing Yamnechidan, or the decision that is similar Chena, and Yamnechidan Shingle Shena, and they love your response.
So it is these, and all practices are distilled into these 6 paramitas. If you are able to recall this as you go, that understanding will help you in your success in practice.
Oh, yeah, that you call that Labasum Dian, Arjin Togunal Pad, Uni, Yamnechi Shiba or response.
And furthermore, as I have said, the 6 paramitas too are distilled, found in their entirety in the 3 higher trainings as well.
Oh, yes, that lava thing is in lava your tongue, lava sum to the tongue, thing is lava, thing is in lava, and a person to not to Yamnechi, person tango sumudi, Jimba, Sudum, Service, Yamidi, Ruminam, Truminam, to Tisum, do the Chavo response.
Suchim love. Oh, thing is the thing is thinking
about Trum Lava.
Less one.
Tamotrum Labadi, Yamnechi, person to not do Yamnechi,
No.
person Tamosum, Jimba, Sudum, Service, Yamnechi response.
The first higher training of ethical discipline has contained in it generosity, ethical discipline, and patience, the first 3 paramitas.
Oh, yeah, that in Labas, Amoturum Laba, and things in Labat. Things in Labat is something Pajinam during a nature response.
The higher training in mental concentration contains within it the paramita of mental concentration.
Oh, yeah, that is Tamutsum Rosa, things it was all Lava Sherab Lavadra, Lava Sherab Lavadi, and it's Shirjingi, to buy Shirjingi Yamena doing any Yames or response.
Then a chick chairman there, does it?
Magic the Tudu the Chor,
No,
Ozukagagi, Gaga Tumut,
no,
or the Tudu the Konzukagal,
no,
or it is that Gion.
no. And in the higher training in wisdom, the 6th paramita, the paramita of wisdom, is contained, leaving energetic discipline or zeal, this paramita infusing all the 3 higher trainings.
that is that under Parjin Truk, the lava sumda, and Yamlin Patu, other Yamlin Suzu to Yamlin Chigi Baina, and Yamlin lava sum Parjin Truna about doing Yamlin the day. Parjin True, the lava sumna and Yamlin the order, the Chazan, the Shima Chituna, and Jaman Manama, Lushama Shama, the little Zamba, and a Kanga Sanal Kodu, the Chari Saman, Husha, his own. You can't love the jelly of good thing.
All practices contained in the 6 paramitas. The 6 paramitas contained in the 3 higher trainings. Back and forth as we practice then, understanding the 6 paramitas are found in the 3 higher trainings. Understanding this then, when we come to later chapters where these topics emerge again, you will better understand their meaning. And so I've sketched this out here now.
Oh, yeah, that is on the sunny shishing on the Lugava shishing, Lou Shishi, and a Parji Tambo Trudy, Karchina, Parji Tambo Trudy, semi Mewa, to where you to be at the and to see them some grace. Any something nobody, any Yawa, semi Mewa, Tobiaga, Pendala Yamina Sungures, and it's what Shera Parji Karchina and Tekonani Tobet. Jula. Chito Yaming children, those things.
That's true.
Yeah.
Not true. You don't get to some.
Yamin should do
Lolo,
Party Tambushi or
Tambushi,
this same Maywag, Jutuber, Jutuber, any chip tutuba, any Teshik, any someday Party Yorwa, this same Mayo, some Mayo, Tobiac.
That's it.
Let's to was share up with Party Jorwa, the Yaponani to shape it good to wear it. I know what was decisions who rest.
The first 4 paramitas are cause for a mind that goes undistracted. And so they are presented for the purpose of achieving, for the purpose of causing the eventual state of non-distractedness, while mental concentration, the perfection of mental concentration, is the moment for the achievement of that non-distraction or that undistractedness. And then the paramita of wisdom is for causing insight into reality as it is, suchness.
Oh, yeah, that is the matter. Lapsiki, Lam, Parjin Truk, Labasum, and a conso puzzle with Treva, and a conso with that is those Lam Labar Chebala, and it's so Payu Yoba. Oh, the that Trevati, Nalani, those Teshikavares.
So the basis that is the path, then that is 6 paramita and 3 higher trainings, all of these interconnected. As they are trainings based upon conscientiousness. That conscientiousness is indispensable and connected to all the rest of the trainings. And so this cursory presentation of it.
Oh, that if you around that Yamne Chiondu, that Labasum Parjin Trugi Yamne Chiondu, that's all Sawadodi, Payu Chatter, Payu Bati, and Yam Payobati Yamne Yoba Yina, and Labasum Yamne, Parjin to Yamne Chazan, Yungu Yoba, and Pame Chevaina, and Labasum Yamne, and Parjin to Yamne Yungi Meba, or Tichitola, that Karichokorasana goes from the same sungures, same that same sungas. Oh, yeah, that same sunga, that Tendala, and Manzuta, Yamne Chitani Shig or Ti, and same sunga, same Sungyal, Sungja Kari Pangja, Sem Sungyagi Tapage, and was Sem Koran motion by it, and Sem Digi, that's Karisung Buyoba, Unja Digi, and Sunga Digis, motion Tani, and it's Kokus, Unsa Pageta, Nimutozola, Nimbu Tentai, and Nimbu Tentan, and Korta, Panja Bed, Nimutu, Sawan, Meva Swag, Topshik the then Ming the Pamito, Sawan and Tunchiba. Nimodi by Melsware, comment means of by Melsware, or the director that Tango Nimodi motion budget. 아니 니모를 님부때 니모를 님부때잖아 니모를 자원 봐 내가 써 되게 됐다 남녀네 지단 그것도 들이 세월에 손을
The practice then entails the practices of the three higher trainings that are the practices of the six paramitas, all of them founded in conscientiousness, rooted in conscientiousness. Where conscientiousness is present, then so too may six perfections and three higher trainings be present. Where there is only negligence, the six perfections, the three higher trainings will too be absent. Their absence, their presence, informs actions of the three doors. Namely, control of the mind controls the actions of the three doors. As one protects one's mind, guards one's mind, identifies the mind, that which is to be abandoned, that which is to be adopted. When the mind familiarizes itself with itself and what must be preserved in itself, that which must be eradicated from itself, namely the mental afflictions, the klesha, and then begins the practice of eradicating the mental afflictions so that in the end, nothing remains of the mental afflictions, not even the name for identifying them. When the mind identifies mental afflictions, uproots them entirely so that nothing remains, this progression is the path of practice.
아니 강바 고자야다 아니 숨겹치야다 답시 망고 지기도 어디게 지기도 어디게 아니 님부대야 저들에서 나 타마코 양조 코베 모션다 나도 연구도나 고추용 아니 거는 예바지로 니다 땅고 되에 아니 거기 춤을 두고 되에 아니 가르치고도 나도 답시 지기로 어디 쓰더니 아니 니모나 봐 나와는 거 니모 봐 공치배 최도 어디나 당주 뒤에 잘라 송아 나시 전에 아니 말하는 세미나는 이모들도 가보 뭐셔마 아니 니바 니모를 티시게 님부때 에 디네 니모 티시게 님부때는 타마 난또 하동이 또 하동 거는 그 자원 판매버서야 어 탐지 되게 찍고 지단으로 빼디다 찍고 삼무당으로 해서
Just as we have homes in which we have our precious belongings, our valuables, just as we seek to protect that which we own, we do that by knowing when a burglar or a thief comes near, by identifying the burglar, the thief. When that individual is identifiable, then when they arrive, we can make all of the necessary protection to our belongings, that they aren't lost, close the doors, and do whatever is required to ensure that our valuables remain in our possession. And this may be likened to familiarizing oneself with the mental afflictions and beginning to apply the antidote to the mental affliction. But then when the thief has been identified, but all one's possessions have been protected, when one then seeks criminal charges against the burglar, the thief, so that they never engage in that again, then this would be to apply the antidote for the thorough eradication of the mental afflictions, that is the union of shamatha and vipassana, the union of serenity and insight for the realization of suchness as it is that entirely eradicates the mental afflictions. So you may think along these lines.
아니 아유 생애디 두진나시 맞아 매나시 두진나시 그래서 아유 두진나시 아 매버디 맞아 치워나시랬어 치워디 가두나 맞아 그 마요 탑시지나 까와 나 매다 두진이 가두나 맞아 그거로 왔어 디나시 전 바유 생기 두진나시 빼자는 송거랬어 아니 바 매바 생기 아니 치워나시 빼자는 어디 도나 냠내지도 그래서 로 돈이는 너 전제기 전반에 샤 너도 로그인 어디서 세브 요래서
All about the sutra and the shastra, there is mention of conscientiousness. Now, all the places where mention is made, I cannot necessarily recall, but I do recall in a particular sutra that conscientiousness is likened to an effective medicine, whereas negligence is likened to death itself. For when we come to possess an effective medicine, then we strive to take it and to use it. Where there's the prospect of death, we seek to evade it. And so where there is conscientiousness, we have what is likened to a medicine. Where there is negligence, we are confronted with death itself.
다든지 이들 좀 받아 가지고 거기에 다 냠내 시들 좀 봐. 아무 주제들아 장주선 깨봐 당 아니 거기 저 아니 바위 번에 쌤 송아. 다 계산도 마치 돌대기 계산당도 책들이 강도차. 다디는 다만 예시를 내는데 아니 주제다. 아니 땡다. 아니 방자기 고스는 한 번째는 sabje 맞담 송이 그랬어. 안타고 주제들에다 쌤 송아. 아무데스 당하는 삼바 부수서 봐서 뉴스 쌤 깨버디 마냐바 송아. 이 아니 순간에 바위로 보내 송아. 다 이송이요. 그래서 다 디송이야 전달한 진주 자와. 다 계산하고 비교를 해야 들어. 업주점바 가인바 간시 레버 마다 되는 담대 제율장 아니 참 당시 딱 와서 어디 지고 다 쌤송이야 된다. 아니 자와도 되는 송거래서
This mention of conscientiousness is found in the Sutra of the Four Close Mindfulnesses, Mindfulness, Sutra of Close Mindfulness. And then last week, we began the opening of the fourth chapter on conscientiousness. And as I said, the presentation of conscientiousness is first given in verse form, that is a summary, and then the more extensive treatment comes later, in which an outline contains the presentation of conscientiousness, its justifications, or rather its rationale, that which is to be abandoned, and the rest. The root verse I have already read once, but the root verse is the children of the conqueror who thus have firmly grasped this bodhicitta should never turn aside from it, strive never to transgress its disciplines. Whatever was begun without due heed, and all that was not properly conceived, although a promise and a pledge were given, it is right to reconsider, shall I act or not?
타조 간다디 자juk 셈디 돌 바땅 땅나 지기 말 메로이 규제 시약 된다가 자와디 교비요래 대단다 디 된다라 빼나 빼도 저는 가도 지dengi 자와리요라 만나도 지도 자와 지dengi 자와 나라 아니 내가 지도 자와를 망부요다 빼다 자와라 빼 디치기 무슨 체자스데 개요 맞잖아 자와를 망부요 제가 예배 나네 아니 자와 망부지 가르치고 왔어 다제도 결국 뭐고 better level to content chiwa, chigurua, chikche. Yan, Tajido, chigla yan, the level chair, big mango jungurua, and it on the Taji Chune, Macheva chikche, and I thought Yago Meva, Sabsa Macho, but Taji Chewa Kashila, and it on the level mata with Pondane, to their courage, Chawamo Zungurua, or Nietzsche. That in a Suzuki Yank, Lekashi, Suzuki Kellen Chen. Then the level chigi, Taji Che, and the level against Chitus against Chigi is Kellen, and the Lagacho, or the Rima Yunguruas. Oh, just a leg, Rima Yuba in a leg, Cheva Teta Tamji, and the Suzuki go Chawa Cheva the Tamu Gotsam, Yuchasam, Yenayam, Tiba. Yanchi Kashi Laga Chegas in Yuksha. Kashi and Laga Chegas and Jewisha, Karicheva in a Yangs, and in Dilaya, never catching your degrees and pedisum your response.
With the arising of the mind of enlightenment, it is conscientiousness that ensures its preservation. So, conscientiousness. And these first two verses, or rather, yes, these first two verses present to us an argument that points out that abandoning the mind of enlightenment is unjustifiable. It begins with the description of ordinary circumstances of carrying out a project. In the world, there are all sorts of projects in the world, all sorts of various occupations, and there's a form of engagement in these sorts of occupations that involves no due discipline, no investigation of what the labor entails. One simply leaps into it and come what may. And then there are others that one falls into too without giving the labor any examination. Whatever comes to mind, one does, and one simply goes along without much of a care, without great caution in their work. So one finds this sort of activity in the world. Then there's another kind of activity too, where one has examined what one is going to engage in, and one has then committed oneself to a course of action and said, I can do this and I will do this. And so there are a range of ways that we work. And in any of these circumstances, in any of these scenarios, if one begins and then chooses to break off that work or to change course, it isn't so problematic.
Oh, yeah, that Anzu Ching Chizo, Chawana, Chawa Richi, and Rangi Lake, 6 Taji Majeva, Taji level Majeva in a Chawa, Kanda Chawa, Suzuku Majeva, Yushana, Tibata Kangayor, and Chawa Kashi, never to Trukuba, your cigarettes, you got Maduna, never you got your cigarettes, or that they get the pellets. That did Pedilla Chanda, Tonda, Karicheres, and Tanda Mazota, Kari Ganazo, Kariche, the Chanju Sembe Toba, Chanju Sembi, and that Page. Sanju Sem Jula, that Samba Prosons of Sanju Sem, Samba Ke, I Kene, and Sanju to the Doba Kelang. That's a use of the Doba Labi, Lavia Teyan, and then Suzu Beta. I guess Gabugi. Sanje, the Sanju Saba Saji said the Chebakanga Rangi Gabu to Tenta, and Simjet Tamjel, Dange, Simjet Tamjik to Tandachi. Simjetamjik Tanda Lani Bang, Sam Kegi, Jenny, Simjetamjik, the Paget Sanjik Sala Kovachi, Joel, Lobby, Sentama to catch him, Lansabe. Lagat B and Taiji think it's our town at the Chibaso, you are Mares. Dichiba Yungumar, what did you send this gates out it? And Tanga, Tigimare, Tawati, Azang Yava Chambores, or the thing you are as much.
So it is ordinarily in the world. There are activities that we commit ourselves to without due examination, and then sometimes we change course. And then there are two projects of such consequence that should we change course, there are serious ramifications, serious consequences. So there is this range in the ordinary world of work. But what we do related to the Bodhicharya, the vows, the formal vows of the mind of enlightenment, that consummate mind that is the mind of awakening, where it has arisen, where the undertaking has been formalized, where one has called to witness the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas and promised to carry out the well-being of sentient life, and said, I will do what is entailed in securing for sentience, omniscient Buddhahood for every last living being. When this is the labor that one has formalized for oneself, to abandon it is nothing like changing course in one's ordinary work. For when one abandons this, it is grave indeed.
Oh, yeah, that did to have the six that the Tamashi Jorgota. Sanjay Nanda, he said, Sherab Chimbu, Kantashi, Daniki and Tataba. And tell us, should Jishi years or did that 66 hours.
To show this, then the third verse of the way of the Bodhisattva, yet what the Buddhas and their heirs have scrutinized in their great wisdom, I myself have probed and scrutinized. Why should I now procrastinate?
Oh, then since I live about that, Chanju is semi, and that Jigangi Chawa, Tawa Nashi and Tangshana, and Digimares. That Karichene is Zamata, the Rangi Anita, Chawati, and Shindaga Chawa Cheva in a Tawa in a Yan, and Yabachimbu Yobare. The Chanju is semi Tawa Yina, and Hajangi, down at Yabachimbu. And it's Kandar Digitawa Latene Rani. 아니 that 배 간다 예버 첨부요 그래서 나 라기 전주 심 땅을 때네 아니 정말 전주 심 랑기 간다 전주 심 땅에 준세라 때네 아니 미성을 깨버려 때네 미성을 내 동네 되게 영네 영어 맞지 아니 라야 전주 심 줄을 깨고 그 하장 배 가고 아좀 더야 매버다고 되네 니주인도 아니 전주 심 땅을 되게 말했어 어떻게 숨겨래서
Abandoning the mind of enlightenment is nothing like breaking off an ordinary labor. It's not at all the same, and it's not at all the same because the repercussions are so much graver. When one abandons the mind of enlightenment, what happens then in store in one's future is suffering in the hell realms, the suffering there, and even more, the time again when one will give rise to the mind of an awakening is all but non-existent.
Oh, yeah, that the Harichiness, that's Penata, Yuzendo. That's some of the town is over that on the Sange that Chanju Semba, Tamji Jang. Any that on that moment, Dr. Mangu Chen, the Chanju Cho to send Geba the Pen Chita Yuba. And it's Chanju Sem down in any Yimi country Yuba. Oh, the day bed Koranzo with bed Yuba signi. And that and Chanju Sem the Koranzo with Nizu Chazan Ken. And Chanju Sem Queen Song. Ma Chanju Sem Yula Magan and Yemi Song. And Chanju Sem Kenny, Yamba, but the Tanga and Yangati to Yoba Chazan Koranzo Susu Dilla Yams Lang. And Yams Lang around the Yams Lang was in a top white key. Addition any Maranzola Lambi 10 years. That they do, and Sanjay song with a long detail. Long rang it up, long Chamatula, and Rang Ichima, Yaba the lady, and Hajanita. Okay, Kanda Chanju Sem Jebe, Yimila, and Sanjay Sumbala Rangi. Any Lumagava, Yima Chibe, Yabachi or Resonance.
Karis nebe yore? Yimichi Yeba.
Sanjay Sumba, Eva Makubata, Yima Ishima.
The rationale is this way, for it follows from the irrefutable conclusions of the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas themselves, who undertook an examination of the mind of enlightenment, the mind of awakening, and found its indisputable benefits and the disadvantages should one abandon it. These were seen clearly by the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas, and understanding this in detail, they provide their instruction in the advantages of the mind of enlightenment, the disadvantages of abandoning the mind of enlightenment, the very dangers of abandoning the mind of enlightenment. And then they, the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas, did practice in such a way that realization arose in their minds, such that they were able to speak irrefutable demonstrations of the mind of enlightenment's advantages. And so there are these scriptures that are definite in their authority, speaking to the value of Bodhi mind. And so when the mind of enlightenment is abandoned, this amounts to disrespect to the authority of the Buddha as well.
Oh, yeah, that's Sanjay Sunga long to the Dani Zidamaduta, long Samata, Ribasama Sirwa, the long Samata, Ribasama, Sanjay Sunga, that long to Johannes, that Koran Zoga Tango Tabachebala Tene, I don't know to see Niba de Razua, Sanjay, Niba de Shirab Chimbu Tapa, and Sarah Chimbu, Sanjay Chumde Degi, and but Tapa Chen, Peta, Chanju, Sem Yula Jeva. 아니 매심제 탐지기 된 탈침 뭐 용화에다 두두 차단 여바다 랑기 된 신기 된 다다 탈침 봐 여바데는 랑기 때를 퇴선 공부이 냠들랑 때를 참배 가다 랑기로 또고 참았게 어제베 냠용데 아니 시행라도 때 뭐이다 고 롱참아 대달로 랑기 롱참아라야 아니 르마케바기 니메치세 니바들라 다니 기자 따다 봐서도 다니 기자 따서 수비 그냥 아무 장주고 셈 율레케야 지도다 전주생 배우니 장주생 율레케 유즈 그룹다 장주생 제는 제설 제 장주생 저벌 럽기 있으니 캐래 아니 들 따바체는 때데 뜨기체는 장주생 제바로와 제바 인자 아니 다 저주기 아 완전 따바체는 다 장주생 이게 아니 장주생 저벌 럽야서 캐래 다 근데 세찬이 아니 땅와이나 아니 하장이다 그래서 내가 전부 농주 전부 차게 열어서 리버드 계획 내가 이거 해서
Scriptural authority is a form of authority, and the authority of reason is another form of authority. And here, valid scriptural authority follows from the examination undertaken by the Buddha and the Bodhisattvas mentioned here, yet what the Buddhas and their heirs have scrutinized in their great wisdom. That examination in the great wisdom of the Buddhas and their heirs found that the mind of awakening, where it arises, ensures the securing of the well-being of all sentient life and secures the realization of one's own welfare and the welfare of all others. And one discovers this advantage to the mind of awakening through study, contemplation, and meditation. And then one achieves a realization and conviction in their truth that becomes authoritative. And then when it is spoken of, when the advantages of the mind of enlightenment are spoken of, to disregard those advantages is to disregard authority. And so it is the benefits of the mind of enlightenment one listens to. The listening causes one to draw together conditions for developing that mind, and then one commits oneself to, should the mind of enlightenment arise, to actually engaging in the practice of the Bodhisattvas. And then this happens, it happens such that the mind of enlightenment is awakened, as one has agreed to, committed oneself to training in the execution of the conduct of the Bodhisattvas. And at that moment then, to discard the mind of awakening would be the most grievous mistake. It would simply be unreasonable.
아니 가르쳐서 라이언 전주심 줄게야 하장 가고 요가 인반나시 아니 산지지 고마 토바야라야 그 타는 고찬 이제 니수 차를 세다 인디 좀부터 가르쳐 오다가 남 장주심 당이 줄게야지 깨봐도 송어 권에 장주 마도지 봐도 되다 선 마당 송어 치고를 해서 어디 송어를 송
Where scriptural authority has emerged from an examination of things that allows for a conclusion that the mind of enlightenment has the advantages it does, and this causes one then to take up that mind of enlightenment. Having been taken up, the mind of enlightenment then must be sustained so that it sees no decline. But if at this juncture when it has arisen, one chooses to discard it, not only is the mind of enlightenment itself made distant, but made even more distant is omniscient Buddhahood that requires the mind of enlightenment. So where the mind of enlightenment does arise, it must be ensured, its preservation must be ensured.
예, 그래서 장주선비 아니 모두리 산제 고마마도 가도 마소와제 땅와이나 아니 이미 해야 되다 요어마 sabject 이미 되래 숨 아니 가리어서 당고되네 아니 년도를 그 이미 아니 이미 신들 냠버 주바 아니 사토벌베 장주선비 젠 땅와이다 사토벌베 하장 유령 부차 Then
the verses that follow describe three ways the disadvantage of discarding the mind of enlightenment. The first disadvantage being the experience of the lower realms, the hell realms. The second disadvantage being the welfare of others is sacrificed. And the third, the Bodhisattva grounds themselves grow a distant prospect for one.
Oh, yeah, that subject tambo nyandro ngesong le kigre se that is ngesong drove junse share tandala that sik tambo de ede eder tamche ne leji druba majena semje teda kunlube dagi druba chindra juru so de sik shidigida ngesong le kigi yubagida 아니 다 공땡이 열에 소리지.
The disadvantage of discarding the mind of enlightenment, the reason being it causes migration to lower realms, is presented in the fourth verse. For if I bind myself with promises but fail to carry out my words in deed, then every being will have been betrayed. What destiny must lie in store for me?
Oh, yes, that's that. Gede that to Tamu Gede Tetar Tamchenes, Mazo, Tamal Tandu Kanga, Tanda Tamu Shidi, and Kung Dusagi, Dodi, and Tanda di Punsan, so using Punsan, and Sangi Chube, Chiwashibe, Dojo, or Dinata, and the Sikamadi Sumyola, and the Sikamu Shidi Kung Dusagi Dojo, the Sanjay number, the Sheriff Chambotaj, the Tazaba. Tela should 지시 요새가 도디 콩 냠내지단 콩디 두사기 장주선 뭐 봉상 생겨로 사주고 좀 봐. Kurang sange chumde de la ya jo shu di len sum ge o di na la ni do di me la do bu ko ba la do bu ko do s o di na la ni ta da ga ju da di kong de pe se bu chen yo re so no
풍보는 풍봉아이 풍봉 풍상
봉상
아니 풍상 풍기 닥자
장주스 뭐 지금 민
풍상 풍기 닥자 풍보게 그래
봉상 야 봉와서 자라는 거 너무 봉샤 세 좋아 봉상 세 들어 미지 민 장주스 뭐
But before that fourth verse, this verse, the third verse, yet what the Buddhas and their heirs have scrutinized in their great wisdom, I myself have probed and scrutinized, why should I now procrastinate? This verse comes from the Sutra of the Array. And in the Sutra of the Array, the Boddhisattva of the great heat, a 10th Bhumi abiding Boddhisattva, poses a question to the Buddha, and the Buddha responds with this verse. So we find the scriptural source of the third verse is the Sutra of the Array. And so the fourth verse, for if I bind myself with promises, but fail to carry out my words indeed, then every being will have been betrayed. What destiny must lie in store for me?
Oh, yeah, that the Ponsan, the Chandusen Town, Yina, and then it's only Jula Jigres, and the Carson is like Suzuka, the Legati chickens, Kellen, and a Kellen around Majeva. Majeva in the Carichavas, and that's Simjin, also Michi, or Town, Yina Yang. Midi Tuja, the midi beds, midi, the Tangu to Tuja Lagua, and that Mazuka, the Simjin Tamjel, the Tanga Jamu to Simjin Mamu, the Simjin Tamjel, and the chickens, Kelly, and Majivan go down in nearby yours. They don't take China any pain that Nimi Bangusuna your resource.
The verse points out that the mind of enlightenment arisen following an examination of what it entails, that it involves the service of the well-being of innumerable sentient beings. With this understanding, when one then rejects the mind of enlightenment, it's one thing to deceive one person, but when one has made assurances that one will serve all sentient beings who are innumerable, and then reneges on this, this is nothing like deceiving one person. It is a deception that deceives all. And so the consequences are serious.
당한다 뒤주가가 안한조 지당기다 최셰당 차네 아니 아무 거기 최기다 먼저 배는 아무 알림님부터 시에니까 배 산지지 고바 토게다 되는 배 여기야 제가 시에냐 데 마송에 있는 님이 시에서 뒤절 내 당보로 딱 한달 거기 최냐면치당 탑식 차지식이 요레스 Zani Lugudida, Luguda, Yuzidisa, saying to Jamal Shuchovas and drink on the tour to the chicken.
No, the church in the Zabala and the Payon and the Yorero, the
Digital let and war, Digital let and war, and I would draw a chilla, and talk with Chan Pep. Go church in the Payon Yoba, Kevin Yoba to get Shigarwa. That is it, Majiba in a Jigudo, Shanado, that's yours, Ishadani, and go on the chug, short chair, whether what is the resolution.
And the prospect of birth in the hell realms, the disadvantage, the great fault of discarding the mind of enlightenment. These are spoken of now in that style that one uses when dealing with beginners. One first tries to elicit some response from a beginning person by speaking hyperbolically of all the great advantages of a thing, and then afterwards pointing out that should there be any any mistake, the consequences are very grave, and trying to in that way instill fear in that person. It's the style of first getting a rise of a beginning person, and so we're going to stop here for today.
아니 아무튼 그래가지고 이다 거기 딱 준주고 냠내 지하게 럽시 그거를 됐어요. 제가 sem날에 수주 더 봐서 마세요 얘는 아니 그 저트는지는 그래서 템버 망아요 그러는 게 마시 보이나요? 미밀게 제티 안 좋고 말라베요 그러 어떻게 편도치 보여서 저트는 진짜 야무도 손이
So this is the basis then in the path of practice. And now if you have any doubts, anything isn't clear, we can use our question and answer time to clarify anything that needs to be clarified. And when we do that, then this helps me recall things. And if I'm not able to respond, if I don't have a ready answer, then I can ask another and then return with a better informed response for you.
Yeah.
If there are any questions then.
Thank you again. And when you described how we could, it was a description about how we could more fully eradicate kleshas and negativities with, I think it was, you said, using Vipassana and Shamatha. Could you go maybe elaborate a little bit more about that at the moment? At what moment would we apply those as opposed to the four antidotes in our practice? Just maybe some elaboration there.
Nyomon heda bede pangwala pangyala shine hapong sung de jelne sungjadi gi ane nyomon di bede ane pangyage gyurwa dendre ani sungsong ta chitang azo ani nyamne chegin ane nimbo top shidi tengen nyamne chegorwa 되게 잡라 아니 실하 성절 저와디 네 가드라 렌타르고레 가드 냠는치고레 땡고레 가드 땡고레로
나 선대 땡 하고 시내도 셈체지 걸어
알티티스 오데 아니 제시 아니 계신 게버든 스무르치스 제시
안다 지내 나도 생이 수주 그냥 곰잡냐 줄 또가 계속은 냠내 제로 시내 담보간도 시내 그걸 시내 두배라 아니 거기 셈체지 거기 땡이지도 아니 땡이지 미국 tempo 요 차서 아니 지내 아니 미국이 세장 아니 하동스도 미국을 하고 세장 버서와 미국 시내 셈 거라 맞추고 버는데 아니 미국 제부 잡투야 저 차기로 와 이리 좀 골라동 통과라서 하동 제가 하동 통과 셈 찍고 땡이 찍고 토에 셈 미국 찍랑 때는 전부 tempo 신데 두고도나 고시내서 그러와 하동스도 좀 셈 다시 신내 대원을 이거 지금 대화 가시는 미국도 지고 잡고 거다. 거기 다시 꿀미 되나 다야 거기 치료 유시바다 강가 미국 그냥 지고 잡 아니 미국 가서 지고 잡네 셈 맞고 거시 내기도나 아니 하동 어다 알이 신내는 하동 못 되시 근데 지어래서
the union of serenity and insight is a development that happens on the basis of a meditation practice. First, one achieves a serenity that is a single pointed awareness that is impervious to distraction. When it becomes entirely stabilized, a moment is arrived at where one may exercise on that same object of meditation. It may be the form of the Buddha that has been taken as the object of meditation, and one has achieved a single pointed concentration on that object. And the moment comes when one is able to cycle in an analysis without that single pointed state of mind being ever disturbed. One achieves first the shamatha, the serenity, and then it is said to be combined with or in union with insight when the same object of meditation remains and the mind remains steadfastly fixed upon it, yet is able to cycle through a range of objects. For instance, one has taken the object of the Buddha's form and the mind is single pointed, but then one is able to consider the exterior of the place, for instance, yet one's single pointed state of mind remains undisturbed. When this is the state, then one has achieved the union of shamatha and vipassana.
이제 걔랑 바이디 인구도 없이 다 아니 실라선되게 되긴 이제 같이 치고랬어. 이렇게 쳐 당서 왔어. 이 군이 가가서 요 말했어. 진에 파동대로 왔다. 내가 돈이 내미고 파동디 다 인구도 없이 나네. 인구도 없이 고매하겠다. 인구도 집에 또 쏘디. 돈이도 파동지 차도 가데 인구 싸워지 내가 소리니 파동들의 차도로 돈이도 파동 차도로 일단 그런 게 먹고도 지금 또 나주 양냉장 주 뒤에 세월에 해서
You mentioned the four antidote powers and then the union of shamatha and vipassana as though they were distinct and separate from one another, but they aren't at all. In fact, the union of serenity and insight in meditation upon emptiness is the supreme form of the application of the antidotes, for it is that which eliminates the mental afflictions finally, conclusively.
딱 디체나 딱 저랑 디체 시작해서 딱 한달 인부도 없이 나라 딱 인부도 없이 나라 딱 한달 인부권도 집에 또 없으게 돼 지로 인부권도 집에 또 나라 딱 장주로 쌤다 아니 개와 가가 이나는 여러 인부권도 집에 또 나는 상대로 그래서 딱 개와 치도 잡아 아니 인부도 없이 나네다 인부권도 집에 또 냠내 치고 때는 인부권도 집에 또 냠내 치기 열 때 이나야 코디 방자기 님부 줘야라 아니 당부 교수님 계시 뭐 랑이 님무 깨져디 랑이 그 도콘도 소만다지 님무 줄에 깨운데 아니 수를 셈나도 도슈바 셈도 돌아도 셈도 만지고 이봐 시에바제 아가 드마 송어삼이 교바체 교바도 계시셔지 아니 교바디 강라 아니 랑이 다 교 가르쳐야 정규쌤 보면은 돈이 보면은 집바 땅이나 다 지금 송이나 이 님무콘도 지금 떴지 대국을 가르치고서 딱 랑이 줄 친중 님무 줄 매제어 지도 domsen 거로 딱 뭐만에 수수쌤 방매 도와기 아니 님무 줄이 딱 친중 줄 매제어 지긴다 선배 domsen 대수 상소나 아니 딱 방자기 님무 것도 좀 가다 거기 님무 또 없이 생기고 어떤 데 수juk 쌤나 님만 양내치다나 되게 키고 그러서
In this explanation, then, within the four antidote powers is the antidote power of the application of antidote powers. That application of antidote powers includes the meditation upon Boddhisattva and all virtuous practices. all virtuous practices, those virtuous practices are the application of an antidote. But for those to have their efficacy, to have their full force, they must be first informed by that remorse that is like the remorse of having swallowed poison, the realization that it is not good to be poisoned. And so with that realization, then one engages in, having discovered the poison of the mental afflictions, bodhicitta, meditation on emptiness, generosity, patience, and all of these are the very application of the antidote powers. But then for these to have their ultimate effect, then there must too be future restraint, the recognition that I was negligent, but I won't be again. Where these antidote powers come together and are all present together, we have the makings for a continuous daily practice, and it is the practice of the application of antidote powers.
딱 간단한 게 딱 인부 때다 겨와다 근데 인부도 없이 장마사다 겨와다 지카드 뜻이 망고지 냠랭이 뜻이 망고지 딱 가르쳐 수수고 셈부터 간단 룡아 예수 고스미로 셈제 루이제 나스미로 먼저 디바사이 고스미세요 겨와사니게 고스미 고스미래 디바사니데 디순고는 사고 제가 근데 이게 딱 고스미 저바 tes marama chesona mariba chesona ane dibase gosum ge chobati yago chasona ane gyawasta rosa langa de ni roaso.
In describing four antidote powers, what is proper, what is improper, all ultimately refers to conduct, mentality that informs physical, verbal, and then mental action. When we speak of non-virtue, we mean negative actions of body, speech, and mind. When we speak of virtue, we mean constructive actions of body, speech, and mind. Where body, speech, and mind falter and foul, then we know non-virtue. Where there is probity in our mental action, physical actions, spoken actions, these are our virtues.
Yeah, 당아도 셈 그삼은 뭐 당고도 이로 이지고네 아니 라기 셴로 공도 쳐 토와다 아니 지셴로 버게 간다 셈지고네 아니 지 롱저도 차바페나 지 버게 지 강반네 되라 차바 유변조라 차바죠 나도 파도 지 보이나 보면 차바 보면 볼래 차바 정도다 차바도 수용하는 조가가 아무 셈지고네 셈 마스고 왕게 셈 파메 바자 셈 파메 바왕게 되기 아니 차바지 아니 공도지 지그로 와서 디케도 좀 이지고네 아니 에스탈레 사르와 이거도 사르다 레지고는 디버사나 디네 룽아지 쪽으로 마퉁 거다 룽아게 루지고네 마지고는 마 차바지 나네 고스 참스 마그르 아니 공도지는 고스 마그르 와서 두주버라 두주 룽안 마퉁 봤어. 일단 루이지고는 레사바, 마지고는 레사바, 이지고는 레사바, 사부 전부 고순 레사다는 거지. 하고 해서
A person's mentality first, whether they become jealous, envious, covetous. For instance, we see what others have, their furniture, whatever else they may have in belongings, and we become covetous. This is desirous attachment. Or we become men attached to women, women attached to men, desirous of them. These are forms of mental negligence. These forms, manifestations of desirous attachment. And from them arise other mental afflictions. That waterfall of a mentality causing slippage then in one's physical and verbal actions. For instance, when we are desirously attached to something, then we will be spiteful. All of these are actions that are first mental, and then verbal and physical. So these must be understood, this relationship between a mentality and the actions that it informs.
근데 이 사람한테 주주마다 바이올로디마다 사이는 대신만 제우디 나도 샘 송아 대체쇼 진 샘이야 송 두야 탐람도 아니 샘 송이나 아니 룽아가 줘봐 감사 송 두고 여봐 아니 샘도 마송이나 룽아가 줘봐 송이야 가고 여봐 어디 대시 자야 되나라나 바이오 대신 무슨 대시 자고를 송
So then in the way of the Bodhisattva, conscientiousness is emphasized as ever so important, for it is the exercise of guarding the mind and controlling the mind. It is a method to ensure that one's verbal and physical actions are virtuous. Virtue that is physical and verbal follows from mental control. This and more will come naturally in lessons to come.
So, thank you. If I were to go a little further, then if we were in our practice to come to a place where we can see our mind beginning to become negligent, then I recall in a previous teaching for us to bring to mind that we may be attached to some personage that, you know, we could recognize as actually empty and really a construct. If we were to have that recognition, or if we were to try to realize that at that moment, is this what you are describing about as this insight?
Yeah. Then I 저기 아니 미치기 냠는 아니 체베 갑라. 이 소소기 셈디 요몽기 왕도 쇼르와디 고츠 축바타가 아니 하고 소나 베나 더샤디 아니 미식라 더샤 미식 이동왕 온와식 아니 라메네 아니 뇨모 카레자 아니 더샤디 키드 삼발라 테마타 디 강사디 랑싱기 좁베 동바이 인수디 소소 심나 제네로 심나 제네 똑바 세리디 데르베 똑바 세리디 알레 강사디 아니 랑싱기 좁베 동바이 인바디 제네 뇨몽디 착바디 이 똑바 세리디 데르베
그렇대요. 세우상은
저 서버죠.
저 또바세도 꼭 그래 또바다. 그래서 거기 이무시 레벨 10을 또바세거든.
And which insight do you mean? What sort of insight do you mean?
That this attachment or this negligence, that the negligence and attachment kind of come together, that we may be so habitually negligent, habitually attached, and to realize the realization that, you know, first the realization of that we are just simply habitually attached to something, and to maybe dissolve it in emptiness, or dissolve it by realizing it doesn't really, it isn't really who we are. It isn't really, it isn't existing on its own.
Yeah. 똑바 세리, 똑 세리디. 데 더샤당 아니 밤에 아니 냠들 제대바디. 냠들 제대바디. 아니 밤 Ba maybe Kengi, the shot is Lebegu, Lebegu. Then any cut Kadi in Yamdu Jed Debati, Jed Debe Wangi, and a mother Kadi in there, and a Chaksin the kid de and a Tonigi, Kengi, the chat the Mar Nyam Chupa, and a Bame Mar Me Zotuba. Ani odus ani ngato ranshindi dosha ani bhamegi jema demare ngato gi ranshin sosugi ransh dagi ranshindi ani dosha ani bhamegi jema de ramare
ite ko dara ta khanda ko sam da de chang ta hos ta de khanda de da andar rangshi me ba su jero ta tong ba ni ta ya jero ba tong ba ni ta ya di chögi nilu tadu shenga chödarwa. Chögi nilu tadu shenga se tar suzu sembi tanga da chög karina raji ko chögi rangshin shenga tere. Tedan ta ti idu tanda nga zo döcha ke shenga tena döcha ngondu gyube nekapsu rangshin meba te ngondu gyub tugu mara. Kwenye lo nyi di chidu mara. Lo nyi di nyamdu chegi mara oswa. Tedan ta rangshin meba lo di su shuk chiru tudu 아니 봐줘 되자들랑 심해고 숙충을 도와줘로 와. 이 용을 거의 가다 잘하다 보서 jam리쟁이 차대로 jam리쟁이 직토부리 직토부리 왔어. 제가 라심해봐 또 별로디 숙충부 차오나 되자들랑 심 숙충도 토그래. 아니 라심해봐 또 별로디 숙충부 차나 되자들 배 숙충주 차로. 라심해봐 또 손나는 아니 되자 기기 거라 말와. 어디도 그래서 거의 갑대로 차기로 왔어. 어디도 이 차기로 했어. 이내 따라 심해봐 생기들 롤 때서 공부면나 올라서 게 에스칼레 하고 여러 와서
You know, that's it. That the view of nature as it is, the ultimate mode of phenomena, as being no different from the mind's nature itself, is veiled by kleshas, by desirous attachment. The klesha of attachment is opposite the natural mode of phenomena in its wisdom having been discovered. They cannot exist simultaneously in a mind. Wisdom realizing the nature of phenomena and desirous attachment are opposites. They are constantly one winning ground and the other losing ground, the other gaining ground, the other losing ground. Where the wisdom realizing the nature of the mode of phenomena is arisen, desirous attachment disappears. With the realization of the mode of phenomena, attachment is, the mental kleshas are eliminated. But they are opposites. The mode of phenomena, known by wisdom, cannot coexist with attachment.
아니나 이게 상담으로 사고들 내어서 정보를 충충 줘라. 나 사고 지울래나 정보 별라고 상월래는 사고 지시로 어디나 지금 당아도 소할래단 셈나. 나다 심해봐 또 봐다. 아니 밖에 되자다 kontrol해야죠. kontrol 나다. 사월래는 정보 좀 줘야 돼. 정월래는 사고 좀 돼야 어디로 뒤지고 그냥 열었어.
The relationship is no different. It's the very same relationship as heat and cold, where there's more heat, there's less cold. Where there's more cold, there's less heat. To be felt, the sensation of heat and cold. The wisdom realizing the absence of intrinsic nature is like one of these, desirous attachment like the other, with the preponderance of the one, the other is necessarily less.
저 강제 다다 냠내 디리드 망제 수juk 셈나 공부된 전에 냠용사는 셈도 숙처 셈 송이야 답시체 어디든지 냠내 집을 못 감상 영초조야 말 컴스 강주 셈나 내가 라시기 두 번째인데 진바데 강주 셈나 딱 예워 분담만 뭐 좀도 고네 강주 저거도 코차되어 강주 저거도 파파파 좀 단다 저거 싸와 Okay, the by you go. That one, I never wrote in trouble sour tribunation. So, putting on the trouble, meet to a trouble, do it. Oh, my, you'll wish it they were dodging. That another trouble sour, what is sour in the Tigiva, or the dig sour to the Yamuton in Yamachin. And yeah, collect trouble in Chivicha or response.
But without repeated exposure to the nature of phenomena, the absence of intrinsic nature, and without the conscientiousness that sustains that growing familiarity, a comprehension of the mode of phenomena in actuality, the absence of intrinsic nature, is difficult to discover. And it is because for eons, we have assumed intrinsic nature. Assuming intrinsic nature, we have become very close with a certain mentality that is like a group of friends. And they are a problematic group of friends. And as one attempts to extricate themselves from the influence of that group of friends, one goes out searching for new and better friends. And so it's no different here. We are now, as it were, discovering the better friend, the trustworthy friend, searching them out so that we may make the new friendship and discover the absence of intrinsic nature in phenomena.
Oh, yes, that I will see it, but when you went it, well, a young man again, Chimbu's tone, Magas and part of Mela Chevrolet. Young men call it Gun base, Brangis, the Guns tongues in a good property. But the Bagtar, which were that in a sheet, Tobosawa, they quite rang to one a year, but Yawa, Motion Balaya, or tongue to a Chinese and some of us, that didn't I see around that same. Similar, Yani. There's a shed on Congress, Mazu, Puma, the detail for winning what's at the rest. That and that Chambata, Nixie, the Hasam Dizo, that same proportion as so, that would meet Yaga to child to the local motion. Do the trouble washing or do a washing or washing the corner could do what the Yaga to table or what there. This is similar from sheet and Yanet and chair response.
Now, the way that we turn our back on bad friends is by identifying, by seeing clearly what makes them poor friends. And then we distance ourselves from them, realizing the drawbacks of friendship with them. So one must first identify what is problematic. Now, similarly, to make a new friend, one has to identify what in that person recommends them as a friend, as a trustworthy friend. And then one seeks a friendship with that person. Now, we have been altogether too familiar with desirous attachment and aversion and ignorance for many eons, and they have become old friends. But we are looking to new friendships that are trustworthy and constructive, friendship with Boddhisattva, compassion, the altruistic intent. One must first discover these to be valuable qualities in a friend, and then one may pursue that friendship and distance oneself from the painful friendships. And so this is the practice.
Yeah, so they have a shot.
So, should we conclude here and then recite our closing prayers? If we did that, how would that be?
Oh, yeah, I'm going to that. Amen. How you body? I mean, the round boy, you didn't hear it. Amen, body. I do like the Mogoya, Chua, 나시 레스 이만 도 동다이마 어 제가 대대 냠랭 톤 수수다 한달 아 이어가 생긴데 간다 니만지기 알 수수 미지직 로직 다와지 니만지 당부 니만지 셈랑 송 아니 랑이 빼 고순 줘봤게 송 아니 니만 다와 송 로송 아니 근데 미지디 어 대대지는 가지고 따라다 냠랭 지당데 당문의 로직 송도야당 메시직 송도세 등하고 검시요 말에 송도야 깔아가고 와. 나 당분 이만직 야고 송 아니 이만이 송 나와 송 로송도 들지 냠내 지고야 돼. 당은 아주 냠내 다 합시 상주도 차대요. 세단 되게 아니 냠내 되지 제약이 제도라 아니 가지고 배 되게 책이 산도 꿀롱 제 당고 아니 뭐시 거들라야 셈 송하지 아니 다마 셈 송하되게 된 배라겠다. 마음으로 수수비 아니 다도 사지지 고바 토르기 유 또 쇼서 어디를 중을 줬으면 거 아니 말하면 자고 해서
The practice of conscientiousness then, and the mind of enlightenment and growing familiarity is a practice that we begin to sustain day by day, so that growing it becomes the ongoing practice of weeks and months, and then years, and then lifetimes. But as we begin, we haven't the familiarity yet that makes an enduring practice easy. So we begin then with the day and sustain the day, and then into weeks, and then into years. And as we do that, then we do so by performing the three virtuous parts of practice that are the virtue in the beginning, that is the intention, the virtue in the middle, that is the sustaining of the practice in its actuality, and then the virtue in the end, that is the dedication of the virtue of the preceding two parts to the final achievement of the state of awakened Buddha.
Oh yes. Rendu bele sonye Kandara yamba gashi sambane Lome mare je non roa Nare yave hombo da yuche Ema sumbe sera kundu yang Jambe yangi sewe che sonye Tembe ba kunsan namji cho Nyene rube jena nye che cho Rangi chishin dobe lamji ni Shuja sewe chambe kagi Rube iji mumba seje ne Gyawe tenba yunde zinyu chi Temba rinchen choji makya ma Madhya nyamba gyurve chode ne Nije chimbe yirab jewa yi Kende tejin sewar jewa sho Seje jave menjun chile le Lechu chanju namji rembe kyang Tagu namji yilam pende jin Jave zeba rindu kyang Lasa dunbe dungin rujin jin Gegen seje mindam mimin Sera kundu jave mamba yi Nanda landa java magir jis Kanze tenpa jola shuju ji Shuju kola tumba di Tuden nange tato roje ji Jashi gyajuru ji
From my two collections, vast the space that I have amassed from working with effort at this practice for a great length of time, may I become the chief leading Buddha for all those whose mind's wisdom eye is blinded by ignorance. Even if I do not reach this state, may I be held in your loving compassion for all my lives. May I find the best of the paths of the complete teachings, and may I please all the Buddhas by practice. Using skillful means drawn by the strong force of compassion, may I clear the darkness from the minds of all beings with the points of the path as I have discerned them. May I uphold Buddha's teachings for a very long time. With my heart going out with great compassion, in whatever direction the most precious teachings have not yet spread or once spread have declined, may I offer this treasure of happiness to aid all sentient beings.
May the minds of those who wish for liberation be granted bounteous peace, and the Buddha's deeds be nourished for a long time by following the complete graduated path to enlightenment and the wondrous virtuous conduct of the Buddhas and their sons. May all human and non-human beings that eliminate adversity, as if we're practicing the excellent path, never be parted in any of their lives from the purest path praised by the Buddhas. Whenever someone makes effort to act in accordance with the tenfold Mahayana virtuous practices, may he always be assisted by the mighty ones, and the oceans of prosperity spread everywhere. I dedicate whatever virtues I have ever collected for the benefit of the teachings and of sentient beings, and in particular for the essential teaching of the Venerable Losong to shine forever. In the land encircled by snowy mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good. All powerful sinners, victims, and counsel, please remain until cyclic existence is ended. Just as the brave Manjushri and Samantabhadra do, realize things as they are. Also, I dedicate all these merits in the best way, that I may follow their perfect example. I dedicate all these roots of virtue with the dedication praised as the best by the victorious thus gone ones of the three times, so that I might perform the noble Bodhisattva deeds. May the supreme jewel of Bodhisattva that has not arisen, arise and grow, and may that which has arisen not diminish, but increase more and more.
That's not most.
Thank you. Good night.
Are you chibis roland? I mean, chibab roland.
Sleep with conscientiousness and no negligence. Rasim, Nico.
Oh, yes, it's good.
You're very kind.
Yeah.